Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Mind That Matters. Uh, just so you know, the weather report, the Atlantic would appear to have come to us, and we're 200 miles inland. So there you go. Now, today, I would like to speak to you about being a dad. Now, many of you out there will be parents. I don't know if you ever had thought consciously about wanting to be a parent. One day you would, and what would you do if it happened? Myself, I had always wanted to be a dad. Always. Um, may have been because of my own circumstances, but there you go. It was always a wish of mine. And in 2003, it happened. My wife and I had a child. And for the last 20 years, I can only say that we've been mostly happy with her. I'd say mainly. You have your ups and downs. But no, I'm, I was and have continued to be fascinated by my child, who is, as I've said, 19. I didn't say, sorry. 19 and a half years old and will be 20 next year. I'm not going to say how time flies. It does if you think of it, as you say, 20 years. But then when you think of all that has happened in those 20 years, and you go, that's quite a lot. One thing you find out very quickly when you become a parent, a dad, a mother, a step parent, part of a recomposed family, is that children, unlike electrical appliances that you buy or things you buy from IKEA, things you buy anywhere, all come with a nice set of instructions. Most men ignore. You know, they're all brave and think, well, this is innate. We know how to do this sort of thing. A similar thing happens with being a parent. In my case, not long after my child was born, I had my child in my arms. From that moment, a little hand was put around my heart. And two of them were put around my heart. And that's where my heart is to this day. And I think will always be there. You don't have a manual. You have what other people may have done in the past. But it has no application to what you're going to do. You're blind, completely and utterly blind, and you realize that for the first time in your life when this little bundle is given to you. And then a lot of what your parents and your elders have said to you, but especially your parents, some of it will start to sink in finally, and some of it will start to make sense. Now, this doesn't happen immediately. This happens after the event usually, and you go, oh, that's what was meant, was it? Now, doing all the parent things, that's fine. These are things that have to be done. You know, walking around the kitchen 3 o'clock in the morning with a child who's got a sore tummy is no fun. And when it happens repeatedly, it's definitely not fun. But it gives you a certain understanding into, why babies in particular are the way they are. They're trying to tell you things. Me, being a stupid man, at the time, intolerant of some things. You think of yourself as being a tolerant person, but in many ways you're not. But you find out a hell of a lot about yourself. That's what I did. And that hasn't stopped. For the past 20 years, this person has been teaching me so much. So much. Yeah, my daughter, has made me a dad, made me a better person, made me very self-aware. And it's tough. Being a parent is tough because it's no longer about you, how you think about things, how you relate to the world. It isn't. And this is only my opinion, after all. How it affected my mind was, hang on, I can't be selfish anymore. But you continue to be, because we are. We're egotistical beings. But when that wee person comes into your life, you have to try your hardest to think of other people. How do they fit into my life? How do I fit into theirs? Because I'm 6'1". So I've had this wee person looking at me like that. It continues to be the case. She's a foot smaller than me. You have to be very aware of what you say and what you do has a big impact. Now, what you say and what you do, unless you explain it to that person, could have drastic consequences. But as long as there's an explanation, as long as you can explain why you've done something or said something, then it makes it easier for that little person to understand. And this is an ongoing process. Gladly, now it's happening the other way. My daughter's in university. She attempts to teach me things, and it's like trying to tell a dog not to look after itself. It doesn't make any sense. Because the dog will look at you and go, "So this is what I've always done." And trying to explain mathematics to me. Look, my father tried many years ago. It didn't work then. It's not going to work now. But what is fascinating about the whole process is seeing somebody evolve, somebody now in a position to tell me things. That happens for her private life as well. She tells me where the boundaries are, and that's as it must be. And that's what we learn having a child. We learn about our own boundaries from our child or our children. They tell us where they are, and it makes us think an awful lot more about how we engage with other people. And if it doesn't, then we are dumb or stupid for not listening. Because this is the natural order of things. Our children make us parents. We do well to listen to them because they're running the show, whether we like it or not. Being a parent is terrifying. My wife and I found that out many years ago when our daughter was still quite small. She vanished. I'll explain. It sounds terrible, and it was at the time. I think all parents will have gone through this. You only know true terror when you think of what may, what could, what did, what might happen to your child. Well, it happened to us one day. She was nowhere to be seen. Well, terror is the only word. People say to you, "How do you know you're a parent?" Or if somebody says, somebody tried to tell me about parenting when they've no children of their own, of any sort, step, reconstituted family. Because unless your child has disappeared from your view and you can't see them, you'll never know terror. That's the moment you know you're a parent. And when it finally sinks in, that's how much this little person matters to you. Now, it doesn't have to be your biological child, but it's something you feel. It's either you're a parent or you're not. But at some stage, that feeling will come and kick the doors down and say, look, where is this child now? She wasn't gone for long. Minutes. But those minutes felt like as close as I'm ever going to get to eternity, I think. It was horrible. It was awful. It was a lesson that this is precious. Life is precious. You can't, it's not something you can think about. It's only when it happens that it becomes very, very real. Like I say, she was found rapidly. Being a parent's fun. Seeing your child develop, listening, because you develop very keen senses. I would stand at the door of my daughter's bedroom and I'd listen. And she had this horrible habit of taking very, very deep breaths. I'd be listening and go, Jesus, has she stopped breathing? And then she'd go, oh, and she'd do it again. And you forget. You develop poor memory syndrome and you go, oh my God, it's happening again. But it's not. But then you become very keenly aware of how somebody tries not to make noise. And it's like a curse in a cathedral. It's an amazing thing. It's amazing how your senses become sharpened and become very aware of a noise not being there. There should be certain noises happening. Even now, when my daughter's in her bedroom doing her studies or on her computer or uh, being creative, which she is, she's a very creative person. And I don't hear noises, it sets off a little alarm bell. So a lot of what's innate in us is awakened by having a child who becomes an adolescent, who goes through all the things that adolescents must go through. And we have to learn where our place is and all that because we come to that moment where we realize that we're no longer in control. It's having to give up that control. That's really tough. Really, really tough. And it's tough now. Like my daughter, I think, was 11 before, when we were out in public, I'd let go of her hand. It was just, it's awful. We don't become our parents, but we become adults. It's when we finally wake up to being who we think we could be, or we might be, or we need to be. It's these little people we deal with who become big people, who then go on and have children of their own. That's not my daughter's case. No. But when you become a grandparent, you look upon life maybe differently. You become sage. But the one thing you must learn above all else is knowing when to keep your mouth shut. My daughter's been teaching me that over the last 4, 5 years. I finally learned, and it's something you must learn. You have to. Knowing my daughter has been a privilege, which will continue, for many years to come. It's been an honor, really has. If we don't cherish our children, then what? They will always be our children. We'll always be somebody's child. We have to be able to place ourselves with these things in mind. Now, we're somebody's child. I have a child. Where do we fit into all of this? We can offer advice, but then we have to listen to our children's advice and just enjoy it. Enjoy seeing your children grow. Don't be afraid to be the child, because that will happen later in life. The child will become the parent. May not be a day to look forward to in anybody's life, but it will happen. But then you can just sit back and enjoy it even more. You don't have to do anything. For now, the enjoyment continues. And this is not meant my last comment in this video. It's not meant to sound misplaced or untoward, but my daughter is the love of my life. It was said in a very famous comedy program, we don't love our children, we fall in love with them. And it's very true. There are times where they will annoy us, they'll make us mad, where we lose, well, I lose my rag. That's happened less and less over the years. It was more down to me, and it was all down to me, in fact. But it's true. Not because she's female, it would be the same had it been a boy. And you do. Men must be able to say that as much as women do. Women say, oh, my children are the loves of my life. Men too. Because they're your child. That's your child. That's the person who means the most to me in the world. People think it sounds frivolous. It's not. This has been 20 years in the making. Almost. Well, yeah, it has been. I mean, I love other people deeply. I do. But it's a very different relationship you have with your child. Because that's your child. Sure, we'll have our disagreements in the future. I may not like what she does, but I told her years ago that the things you do I may not like, but I'll always love you. So there you go. That's how I feel about being a dad. I hope that may help you if you're feeling a little bit ambivalent about your relationship with a child or your children. You know, we made the choice to bring them into the world. That's it. So, look, sit back, enjoy the ride. If you're prospective parents, if you got one on the way, or you're planning a family, just think of all the good stuff, not what it's going to cost you monetarily, because if you thought about cost and having children, then don't have children. Yeah, there'll be resentment. How much it's going to cost to get them, you know, from now till we kick them out of the house or they go to university, or, you know, that's a poor way of looking at life, isn't it? Because if it is cost, don't bother. Just don't bother. Now, I'm going to go get off my soapbox. Probably a mug of tea. Tea time here. And I would say, look, be good, be well, be safe, be healthy. If you have a god or a goddess, your god or your goddess, see. Now, talk to you all very soon. Goodbye.